back. Welcome to the Weekly Roundup, the place where we unpack what's been going on in the yoga and wellness world and what we've been coaching our clients through. I'm Carol, YC coach, and I'm here with my wonderful coworkers, Terry, Josh, Bridget, and Maria. And I'm kicking it right over to Bridget. She had a great topic to start us off with today. Go for it.
Yeah, okay. So something that has come up for not only a client or two recently, but also myself and my very own yoga studio is basically about ending relationships with employees, like ending your professional relationship with employees, and whether that comes through them quitting or you letting them go. And I think it's a really every time that this topic comes up, like in groups that I'm in and amongst my yoga studio owner friends, it's a huge topic. I think dealing with personnel is, for some of us, myself for sure, the hardest part of the job, the most emotionally draining part of the job. And yeah, and so I have a client right now who she has an instructor, and yeah, some of the themes here I think you guys will recognize well. They have known each other for a long time. The employee came to this client's wedding. They have worked together for a really long time. She's mentored her, and this instructor just has never improved as a teacher over the years. And not only that, even though that's obviously a huge problem in and of itself, but she also fails over and over again to follow instructions, to be able to perform the regular tasks. Recently, she said there was this one thing that she had to remind her of like 4 times in one shift. And yeah, so she reached out to me recently and was like, "Oh, I'm so at the end of my rope. What are my next steps?" And I did tell her stuff, but I will stop and I'll pass it over to Terry, and I'll swing back around if my thing hasn't been said by the end.
I've had several clients dealing with this issue. And in this situation, my answer is always the same: get them out of there as quickly and fastly as possible. Right. Beyond like obviously firing somebody because they do something completely inappropriate, theft, those type of things. Ongoing problems that aren't resolved. Now, here's the thing, depending on the state you're in and depending on different things, is that this is where having a PIP plan, performance improvement plan, right? Where it's like you document, okay, hey, Bridget, we talked about this, this, and this. We'd like to see this happen. You do the warnings, everything's documented. That's one path to give them the opportunity to improve. And if they don't, then you have to fire them. And I know it's hard. And the other thing, depending on the state, again, if it's an at-will work state, which a lot of states are, you can fire for no without cause. You can just simply say, hey, Bridget, thank you for your service. Thank you for being a part of our team. Your services are no longer necessary. Here's your final paycheck. And where people get them, and I learned this one from my dad, hashtag Terry's dad, where people get in trouble with that is someone says, oh, but why? And then you go, oh, because of this, 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 and this. And if you haven't done anything with regards to that, now they have a case for unfair termination. As opposed, you just say, I'm so sorry, your services are no, you just kind of stick to that line. And I've also found that by the time, if you get to that point, and unfortunately many of us do, they know. They're not surprised. So that's Maria.
There we go. Yeah, I just wanted to say, I totally agree with the sentiment of, performance improvement plan, and just like having like a performance evaluation system in place at a studio is like top-notch idea, right? We always say this, like a yoga studio is no different than any other business. And for whatever reason, we often think that we're like exempt from, having these sorts of procedures and stuff in place. I definitely empathize with your client as well. Like, I think that that's a super shitty situation to be in. Um, and one that, I've experienced myself, not in a yoga studio, but like, in the corporate world. I was working in human resources. That's kind of like my background, before I started working for the YC. And yeah, like I've been put in that position where I've had to fire a friend, like someone like really close to me that I developed a relationship with, in the workplace. And, we got to a point where like we were hanging out outside of work, and that was a really tough lesson for me to learn as someone in leadership. I realized, okay, you can't be friends with your employees. You can be friendly, but you can't be friends as much as you might want to. And as much as you think that they're super dope, it's like there has to be a line, right? There has to be a line, because you get to a point where it can be really hard to see things objectively, which I think might be where your client is also. Like she's having a difficult time, or maybe she's just been willfully blind to the fact that like these things have been going on for so long, and now it's just gotten so bad that like it's hard to ignore for her. Um, so, just to further agree with what Terry said and also maybe provide some additional insight here, it's like if she's an employee, then yeah, like keeping things clean and just saying like, hey, really sorry, but effective immediately, you're no longer employed as a member of this team. Here's a full and final release for you to sign that indemnifies the business of any further arbitration or anything like that. So like, just like clean cut, you sign this, and in exchange for signing this, you get a severance, right? Here's your final pay. Thank you so much. Um, and as far as like what happens after that, like, do they maintain a relationship? Like that's really up to them. Like, are they both emotionally mature enough to be able to maintain a relationship and be able to separate the fact that like work is work and we are friends? It's a really hard thing to do, and I've never successfully done it. But hey, maybe there's someone out there who's more emotionally aware than I am and mature, and they can do it. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but that's my 2 cents. Josh.
Yeah, I love it. And I think the thing that isn't considered is what you just described, like this sort of exit protocol and having that in place ahead of time. You're 100% correct. No studios. And when I say no, I'm like not embellishing. Basically, no studios have protocols for this until they get in trouble. Not to like, whatever, talk about the negative so much, but I'm telling you, Terry and I've seen it recently. I've seen it maybe, I can think of 5 or 6 times for sure, where something goes sideways with someone under their employee. They don't document properly. They wait too long. It blows up in your face. And beyond the drama and everything else, which just has such an energetic drain cost, then legally they find themselves in a battle. And in 2 cases, it literally fucking closed the studio. Like literally the studio, your business, all your investment, time, energy, everything done because you fucked up with firing someone or getting in a fight with someone about it. Right or wrong doesn't matter anymore at that point. And so I don't say that to like say be scared. It's just this is something to kind of take seriously. More importantly, though, or equally as importantly, man, we talked about this at the summit, and I'm sure it's going to come up this year again. The energetic drain, like the cost of that is so much more than you think it is. And if you have a system where the system itself is the enforcer of what's happening and things are clear, and you can just lean on that, that it alleviates so much stress and pressure from you. So I don't know. The only other thing I would add to this is in the scenario where someone, Bridget, that you're describing, where like the owner is friends with the person, this weird word comes in all the time in studios: loyalty. But Carol's just so loyal. She's such a loyal person, loyalty. And it's a really, that's a catch 22 word. It's a really tricky thing. Don't mistake loyalty with I've been around for a long time. Like those are not the same thing. And true loyalty in a business sense is the result of a good relationship and equation mutually for both of you. not the friendship part. And so it's not that the friendship part or being friendly has no value, but the idea that someone's being loyal because they're your friend in the business, or you're going to keep them around and be loyal to them because they're your friend and you let them off the hook. I can't think of almost any cases where that doesn't either completely blow up in the owner's face ultimately, or at the very least become a serious tension point. It's like, it's not an if, it's a when question. That's been my experience. Hopefully I'm wrong out there. Do you, but I gotta say it like as straight blunt as we can. So anyways, here's the practical suggestion, and then I'll pitch it back to you, maybe Bridget or Carol. Sometimes if you find yourself in that equation, like, oops, we're here, this is how it played out. Cool, no shade, this is where you're at. If you need to break it off with this person in a professional sense, because you're friends, maybe you can have a more casual conversation. Be like, hey, can we just grab a coffee? And like, you go sit down. It seems, it's unlikely to me, it does happen, but it's unlikely that if I'm working with Maria and I'm feeling like this is a struggle and a problem and Maria's not doing the thing she's supposed to do and blah, 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 Maria, like, why would she not be doing the things? Why would there be this tension? She also doesn't believe in something, isn't bought in, doesn't want to do the thing. She also feels like she doesn't like this anymore. And she's not saying that either. She's not going to come to me. And so I would say very frequent, like very often, you sit down for this conversation, you're like, I just got to call this out. We're friends. And totally aside from that, from a pure professional sense, I'm feeling like there's this tension, this thing happening, this whatever. Is it just me? Like, what's like, you might be able to have that conversation, and either that fixes it in some cases immediately, or you just come to a mutual breakup agreement. You're like, yeah, I don't want to come in at the 6 a.m. class. I don't want to fucking clean the mirrors. I don't want to do the thing. You're like, okay, cool. Like, I can respect that. And like, but in the business, like, this has to happen. So what do you think we should do? And they're like, yeah, let's just go our different ways. Like, that's totally possible in that scenario too. So it's just being not scared to Terry's point, immediately take action, call it out, point at the elephant in the room. Because just like everything else we talk about, like, it's your responsibility as the owner. People aren't going to come to you. They won't do it for you. You're the only one who can like make that happen, kind of thing. All right. I don't know. That's my 2 cents for now.
I actually, Maria, to your, oh, Kara, go ahead. You go ahead. Carl.
No, I was just, what came up for me was like the key phrase that I heard Josh say was like, people wait too long. We've talked about this a million times, but like, and I think that's why that performance improvement plan is so important because, you might experience something with an employee that's like, that was kind of weird, but like you don't really clock it until something happens again 6 months later. And then you're like, well, didn't something happen 6 months ago? But you don't, it's because you haven't written it down or have record of it. It just becomes sort of like, again, just this long, slow road to the bad that's going to happen, right? So I think that's why it's so important to have something like that. And then to just support also what I heard was like that casual conversation. We've talked about like leaning on your core values of the studio to like say, where's the alignment here? I think we might be misaligned. This is what, so it's not about like, you did this bad thing. It's more like, I don't think we're aligned anymore. And so that's just very clear to both parties and it's easier to break ties. Go ahead, Bridget.
Yeah. Okay. I have a million thoughts, so I'm going to try and just pick one to share. Um, I I have a couple thoughts that are coming up with everybody's really, really smart shares. One is that I often see that this sort of like bad place that we get to with people comes especially with the employees. For some of us, this is like all of our employees, and for some of us, it's just like one or two the ones that you are actually afraid of, like on some level, and the ones that you are not as comfortable setting boundaries with. And this is something I have had to learn so many times. This is a big this part of my like studio ownership character arc, was noticing that there were people on my team who I was afraid to confront when they, to talk to when they didn't meet my expectations, and people that I wasn't. And the people that I was afraid of are the people who it always ends in a fucking shit show. And so notice before it gets to a scary part, who are the people on my team? If the phrase "I'm afraid of" resonates with you, great. If it's about, if it makes more sense to you to think of like who I would be a little bit like, just think if someone didn't do something that's really important to you, like they leave the lights on all night, that's a really big deal for us because we have all windows, we're on a big, like kind of scary street corner. We just do not want the window or the lights on all night. Is there someone on your team who you would be like a little nervous to message and be like, hey, please remember to turn the lights off? And probably some of you are thinking, why the fuck would anyone be afraid of saying that? But I have definitely been there. So noticing those people and then working on yourself enough as a leader to adjust that before you get to that scary point with them. The only other thing I'll say to Josh's point and to something that came up in a yoga studio owners group that I'm in recently, was so often if you do have that conversation, which I don't even think you need to be like super close with someone to have a more like not exactly casual, but it can still be professional and like, but still chill of just like, what's going on here? Like, I don't feel like you're loving this. And I feel like I feel like, we've got this checklist and it says this, but I still am noticing that you're not tidying the props every night. And I've said it to you a couple times. What do you think is happening? I have gotten, and not even, I don't want to say it like that, like I've tricked people, but most of the time I don't have to fire people. Most of the time they actually leave themselves because you point out something obvious, like Josh is saying, like this obvious misalignment that's going on, or like Carol mentioned, like this obvious misalignment of the situation. And that has happened to me more times than I can count, that I started this conversation, I laid out like what the expectations are, what needs to change, and then they come to me, a week later, 2 weeks later, a month later, and be like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. So those are my 2 thoughts.
Yeah, that's been my experience too. Most of the time, you don't have to fire someone. If it's not in alignment, they feel it too, and they very often opt out. And it's not that you're like trying to make it uncomfortable for them. You don't have to try to do anything if you're doing it right. Working in reverse, a couple notes I took was like, one, this is always that thing where, okay, if I know that I've been clear in the expectation, I know that I've trained you on it, so I know that you can do it, and there's some practical application of reminder, a system that tells you to do it, even it's as simple as stacking the blocks, like a checklist at the end of the night, and then it's not happening one or two times, then the third time it's like, now you've done all the effort to be like, well, now this just doesn't fucking make any sense. And so there's only two possibilities. Either I suck at training you in this system, in which case I need to know, or you suck and don't want to do this and we're misaligned in what we're doing here. I need to discover which. And so the two turns of phrase that I feel like you kind of alluded to that often we train to is help me understand, or how do I feel like I'm missing something. How do I help you succeed? Instead of being against them, go on their team. Like I just, how do I help you succeed? Because that's the boundary of like, I'm not going to say don't do this, but what the heck's happening? The only two things I would add really quick is like, we've said this on here so many times, we'll say it 1,000 times more. If you feel like your business is a prison, or you're scared of somebody, or of anyone, client, staff, whatever otherwise, is holding you hostage in your own business, that's fucked up and not right, and you should not stand for it. It doesn't mean to start a fight, but like just hear it clearly. That is not right. That's not normal. It shouldn't be like that. And I see it all the time in studios where they're like a hostage from a group of people, or like it's terrible. I think that the underlying lesson here, and this would be especially prevalent in new studio owners. I'm really seeing this, and I'm stereotyping here a lot. There's this young new Pilates studio owner. We've talked to a few of them now, and they almost all fall into this category where you can hear it immediately. The way they talk about things with their staff, the way that they are talking about how they're going to pay them, the questions they're asking, what they say they do with their team, blah, blah, blah. You can tell that whether consciously or not, they are prioritizing making their staff like them and friendship over alignment with the business core values and mission. They say they want the core values and mission thing, but the actions, the questions, the thoughts, the everything else about it is so heavily weighted on that. But I should make sure that they like me. And there's some misunderstanding of likeness equaling respect, or some power or something. It's not that they shouldn't like you, but it's like that's not the priority action. And I'm seeing it again and again and again. And that's how you end up in these places, I think, at least in part.
I agree. Yeah, if you're afraid to go in your studio, there's a problem. One thing is, here's a pro tip. I'm just going to say this, pro tip. If you are buying the studio that you have been teaching at, which oftentimes can happen, that's where you really can get that friend, now you're the boss. And it absolutely happened to me. So just lessons learned there is if you're buying a business, especially if you've worked there as a teacher or the staff or whatever, is go in with very clear expectations even before, and have those initial conversations. And if you need to change things, make the changes. A good time to make it, if you're the new, it's like you're sweeping house, all that kind of stuff. But don't be afraid to make changes. If you see things that you want to change to align with the way you see that you want the business to be run, don't be afraid to do that and clearly communicate that to the team so that they understand this is my vision, this is what I'm doing. And then I did have that. I did have, if, a really good friend of mine, we'd become really good friends. And if she hadn't quit, I was going to have to fire her. It just was not working. And so we did have a very, unfortunately, emotional conversation. And to your point, I think Bridge, someone said this, is there was some hard truths that she said to me as a new studio owner, as a new business owner, which were like, wow, yeah. There were like a couple things I'm like, yeah, that's kind of, but there were a few really hard truths. And based on that, and I give her so much credit for saying them. And did it strain her friendship? It did, for about a year. But then we got over it, and I'm going to be visiting her when I go to Massachusetts at the end of the month, right? So you can get through it. So that's just some advice, sage advice, pro tip from someone who bought a studio who used to work at, just to let you know. Maria.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great story. That's nice that you guys were able to rekindle your relationship. What I was going to say was further to Josh's point about people wanting to be liked and prioritizing that over leadership. People management, I'm going to call it people management instead of human resources. People management is one of those like nefarious little things in your company that don't feel like they're problems until everybody is talking behind your back about how shitty of a leader you are, or how much they hate that there's not these processes in place, or how they haven't gotten a raise. And then, this like really negative environment starts to form at the studio. And it's happening right under your nose as the owner, and you don't even know that it's happening, and then all of a sudden it just reaches this boiling point and shit gets so bad so fast. And now you've got hundreds of fires that you've got to put out. And like all of this it's preventative maintenance, right? Take the time while you're still building your company, while you're still building your studio to just like, and you don't need to churn them out all at once. It's like, hey, you know what? This month I'm going to make a policy about taking time off. Um, Next month I'm going to make a policy about, I'm going to start working on performance evaluations, right? I'm just going to start to make the framework about this, like what it should look like, what I care about, how am I going to measure success? How often am I going to think about having these conversations with my employees? Right? It's all preventative maintenance. And it's not a problem until it's a problem. And it always becomes a problem. And this is what studio owners don't see. And I get really fired up about this kind of stuff because this is just like what I spent, 10 years doing. And I just see it so much. So, Bridget.
Yeah, it's so much just underlining everything you're saying, Maria, and it's just making me want to just say that if you are listening to this and you are having all these experiences right now, you have had all these experiences right now, like do your best not to internalize when people project their shit onto you. I have had like a coalition of studio or of teachers come to me. Terry was my coach at the time. I thought I was going to literally die. And it was extremely hard for me not to feel like, oh my God, are they seeing something true about me? Like, am I so bad? Like, am I a very bad person because they came at me so hard and so strong and so mean, like truly mean. And this does not mean that you should not take feedback and you shouldn't think like, oh, like, was that, necessary? Or did I maybe, do a thing here or there? But if you are internalizing it and it's ruining your life as it did for mine, as it did mine for a couple months there in 20 whatever, um, that is where you need to get to your therapist. You need to do some work. Like you are not a bad person. And what I have been reminding myself, because another sort of round of this has been coming up for me lately, not as dramatic as the last time and whatever, but what I have been reminding myself of is there everyone in my studio is an adult. And they are all perfectly capable of coming to me in a calm, compassionate way and like sharing their feedback in a way that isn't mean, bitchy, cruel, uh, power. It's like that is their issue if they can't handle that as like an adult. And people who can't communicate like an adult don't get to work in my yoga studio. Um, and they shouldn't get to work in yours either. And you should, learn to communicate like an adult too.
We used to say people are coming to your studio to deal with their drama. So when you walk through that door, like we can be compassionate about it and I can help or whatever else. But like when you walk through that door as an employee here, your drama stops. And now we're here in professional setting. And so to your point, like if we can't professionally communicate and whatever else, and then there's tension, you'd think your clients don't feel that? Yeah, they fucking do. It gets weird. And guess where they don't want to be then? Like it has a negative impact if you're not careful. The other comment I would just make really quick is like, we always talk about this idea, and again at the summit, this is a huge component of the work that we do actually. There are symptoms and there are problems. And very often what we hear as a coach is someone telling us about a bunch of symptoms. And if you can clearly define, like find, define, and articulate the actual core problem that's there, then you're 50% of the way to solving it. And so that's actually where the work is. And so one thing that I would highlight here is like the reason this can be so difficult, in part, in my experience, and the reason you can feel like you're held hostage is because you lack the skill set to hire. And you're scared to fire someone or to hold the line like Maria's talking about over time and to set these boundaries because you think they're going to take clients with you is one. And which means your skill that you're lacking is brand, right? And product. And you don't, on the core level, trust that you can effectively hire someone better. You can't see it. If you like, this sounds weird, but it's true. As you grow in business, especially if you're talking studios, when you get to studio 2, 3, it starts. But when you get to studio 5, 6, it will punch you in the fucking face that you have to suddenly get exceptional at hiring. You need to know how to get a large pool of people fast. You need to know how to vet them. You need to know how to train them. Like your hiring and onboarding process becomes a mechanism of extreme importance. At which point, once that's in place, letting someone go is a piece of cake because they hold no leverage over you. And so that sounds a little negative towards the employees. And that's not how it's meant. It's more just that, like, what is the core problem? So even in these circumstances of human interaction, communication, whatever else, the zoom out thing outside of the moment of the drama is, why is this happening? Like, what lack of system, definition, clarity, training, contract, how is it possible that that has happened? Because most of the time at first, it's not because that person's just crazy or we just don't get along. There's something else that's missing. And anyways, that's how you become wiser as a business owner, is taking the time to look at like what's the lesson, what's this experience give me, what's the gap, what's the problem, what's the core issue underneath this.
And I think, Josh, that what dives into what I was going to say is I think that problem starts with you, because I hear this so often. This isn't their real job. In fact, I've done numerous posts about this. I don't care if they're working one shift or teaching one class a week. I hear this all the time. Studio owners come from us, oh, they're doing me a favor for doing this, and therefore I can't require them to do these things because this isn't their real job. And that's bullshit, because that's undervaluing what you're doing. It's basically saying, I don't value my business. And that's where like to Bridget's point, you just have to really like look in the mirror on this and like, this is a business and you need to treat it like a business. And if someone wants to work for you, then you need to hold them to the standard that you want. It's like, oh, well, they're willing to teach for me, so I can't have them do this and this because they only teach once a week. I can't expect them to come to this. I can't expect them to, because they're only this, da 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 da. If that's the mindset, I'm going to challenge you. If that's you got to flip that. You got to flip that. And if that's how somebody comes to you, well, my shit doesn't stink because I'm this awesome yoga teacher. It's like, well, sorry, I don't want you in my studio. I've always said I'd rather have a staff of decent, solid teachers than a bunch of prima donna rock stars. And I always hear Josh saying, and if you're going to have prima donna rock stars, then you got to make sure you have the staff that supports them so that someone else is doing all those things that need to be done. So if that's what you want to do, you want to hire talent, that's great. But then you got to make sure that you have people to support that talent and do all these other tasks, kind of thing. Because I knew you were going to say that, Josh. You were going to cut me off the pass when I said that. So that's my rant on really looking at when you start, they're not doing and if you think they're doing you a favor, then you need to rethink that, Josh.
What are you building is always the question. Like this goes back all the way back to most studio owners start their business with a vision that ends at the studio existing and operating. Maybe vaguely it includes, I would like to kind of make some money and have a lifestyle I like. That's the end of the vision. That's the starting line. Like that's year 2 if you do it right. You maybe even earlier. And so some of this stuff, it's like you got to revision for what the heck are we even, what's the target here? What are we even trying to do? What's the situation we're even trying to create? And suddenly the industry narrative of value around that prima donna rock star teacher situation with the big draw doesn't mean anything to you in some cases. You're like, in the vision I have, like I'm not building that. Or you are. It doesn't even, I'm not even here to tell you one's right or wrong, but like if you don't know, then you get stuck in it. Okay, let me spin it this way. One of the things that I've had the conversation with a few studios recently, and I think it's been a good sort of testing ground lesson conversation situation I know with Maria and Bridget too, as our newest coaches, is around the idea of direct to membership. That's where you don't have an intro anymore. You're just on day one selling the first month of membership or week or whatever the pass is. And some of the reasons why you might consider that, this ties to it, because if you see like, okay, I don't have much of a sales team, I don't have my teachers really like super dialed in. And so the idea of I sell you an intro and then during that time, I also need to engage you a whole bunch. And then I need to solicit another conversation and sell you again to the next thing means you have two sales moments and a sales cycle that is 30 to 45 days long. And that's hard to get a team to do. So there is, in theory, a strong argument for why you would simplify that. And direct to membership is one possible solution of that simplification, because it means all you do is sell them on day one. Say this one line, sell it, that's it. And the rest of the time, get to know people's names, give them good customer service, fucking teach them some yoga. And so direct to membership is a roundabout systemic solution for this. And I know that we had some other questions about it too. So maybe I'll pitch it back to you, Bridget, around direct to membership.
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting way to start it, Josh, and leads to more questions for me. I have a client, a very new client who's doing a direct membership model, and I am curious about it for my own studio. I actually have a really great sales team, and part of me is like, okay, if I switch to direct to membership, like, what is their job? Like, I know, like, I'm a little bit like, what do I've worked so hard to make them like these amazing salespeople, and I do get that there does have to be that sales conversation on the front end, and I respect that. But I know it'll be probably slightly less common for it to be, I guess with our intro offer, almost everyone buys it in advance, and my staff doesn't have to do anything with that either. I assume it'll be similar, probably a little bit less of people buying that before they come in, probably a little bit more. I think statistically we see a few more drop-ins bought if you're on the direct to membership. So but I still anticipate most of them will be bought before they come in. So yeah, so I want to hear like what is that like? I am very intrigued by the angle that if you maybe don't have the strongest sales team, maybe this is a like good workaround for now. So yeah, Josh and then anyone else, I'd love to hear what's working.
There's multiple reasons why you would consider this, and there's like what's normal in the industry. If you have a strong sales team, I want to just go directly to your question. What is their job? What sometimes is missing is the fact that because you have a strong sales team, this will be more impactful. And then where you previously had to have hyper focused effort at a specific moment to convert from the intro, all that energy can get directed to something else, such as customer service, more classes being booked, and things like the cancellation funnel, which I think is actually where there's potential immediate benefit, and then selling other things. The training, the course, the workshop, the whatever else, the retreat, then it's like your sales team can have more time and mental energy in theory to do that. So there will absolutely be something for them to do. Or even just with a client who's like comes 7 times on drop-ins At that point, it's not a simple pitch anymore. You need to spend the time to go deeper with them. And so in theory, you freed up time for that to be possible. I want to show, just to kick us off with this, here's a document we have. If you haven't been on coaching or been in our private group, then you haven't seen this. If you want a copy of this, comment down below on this inside our private group, and I can send you a copy. If you're a studio owner and you're not in the private group because you're listening to this on wherever else, what the hell are you doing? Join our private group. It's free, whatever. The theory is this. Our benchmark is a 70% intro buy and a minimum 25%. Nowadays, really our benchmark's 35% retention from the intro. So ultimately, if you look at that at the end of a 3-month time frame, you bring in, let's call it 7,050 here. Same number of clients through the doors, even with only a 50% opt-in to the first month of membership. So it drops 30%, which is way too low. It should be higher. But because it's first month of membership, you can actually charge a tiny bit more. And then the retention rate, in theory, goes up 10% because you're changing the psychology of the sale from, I purchased, I'm trying it out for a month. Do I want to continue onto membership? If you think about it, like right now, that decision of I want to give this a go, that's how you get to the studio. And so asking me to repurchase at the end of the first month is actually, in many cases, very incongruent with the psychological behavior of what's happening. And so if you move it up to, I'm going to make the primary sales moment be when I'm already making that decision. That's when I come in on day 1, day 2, day 3. I'm opted in. And now I have to opt out. You flipped it the other way around. I have to choose not to keep going. I have to choose to quit. And people don't want to be a quitter. And very often as well, there's a group of people who just don't take any action. And so if they take no action on an intro, they don't convert. If they take no action on a direct to membership, they keep going. And they're happy about it. They don't complain. They'll keep practicing too. It's a weird thing. So assuming you bump your retention by that 10%, at the 3-month mark, you make an extra $300 in the example here. This is just one scenario, and then we won't go through all of them, but there's also like, okay, well, what would happen if you did better? Like, what if you had only a 10% drop in opt-in? It goes up even more. What would happen if you created a scenario where even it's a full opt-in, but you have a cheaper price, et cetera, et cetera? And what do you look at if you add in more months of long-term membership? The point here is, in theory, on paper, that's what this number is here. In the course of a year, this model supports the likelihood that you could add 100, 200, in this case, 240% more revenue to the business with the same number of people walking through the doors, because the game is conversions and habitual yoga practice, not one-off sales all the time. That's why you would consider it in terms of like the number sense. And I would just finalize this by pointing out, we already do this all the time. Every streaming service, like get your first free week and then it continues at this. Every online SaaS product, this is a very normal thing to do. And so this seems different to some studio owners who come from the old school moment of studio ownership, like I'm from, and all of us are from actually, where this would have been like, if you ran this in 2005, people would have been like, what? Like, it would have been really outside of the box. I think it would have been interesting to test then, but it would have been very outside of the box. Now, psychologically, even if they haven't seen it in a studio in your market, this is a behavioral normal thing that people do all day, every day, all the time. Yeah, there's a starting point.
So one of the things we talked about before, Donna, is what can your front desk do when you're on the direct membership? Well, before I jump into what I said before, I'm also going to point out is that organically, if they haven't bought it, now your front desk, when new people come in, if someone's bought it organically, good, they just zip through. But if they came in on a buddy pass or a drop-in, now you can focus just on those folks, convert them to the membership. But beyond that, let's say you don't have anybody new. It's like, okay, hey, Bridget, I noticed you haven't tried our restorative class. You can recommend classes for people, and this is where your front desk should know your product and say, hey, I see you're always, I see that you've taken a lot of our powerful classes. Have you tried this restorative class? It's a great compliment, and this is why. Right? Hey, I noticed, we, like say in your welcome packet, you give a buddy pass. Hey, I noticed you haven't used your buddy pass yet. Don't you have a buddy you want to bring to class? Or if you have a retail discount coupon in your welcome kit. Hey, Bridget, I noticed you haven't redeemed your gift certificate or your special discount coupon in your first month. Hey, we've got this new product and why don't you check it out? Hey, and remember, it's for one purchase, not just one item. Or, hey, Bridget, we've got this wonderful workshop coming up. I think you'd really like it. Right? Those are the comp opportunities. Now they're actually selling more than just an intro offer. They're selling other things. Or let's say you have other services. A lot of studios now have, like my friend I'm going to go stay with next at the end of the month has red light therapy. It's like, hey, have you tried our red light therapy? Or maybe if you offer massage, or see, this is where when you free them up, not having to sell, they're already buying the thing, then it gives you opportunities to sell lots of other stuff. That's what they can be doing. And working that opportunities list.
I've had
Oh, go ahead,
oh,
Carol.
sorry. Recently had a client, a studio owner, say like, well, which one works? And I'm like, well, actually both work, but you really have to believe in it and really have to train your team, you know? So I think it's sort of like, what's your vision for the studio? For me, we had the traditional intro and trained our team on, selling to membership. And then the direct to membership model sort of was really appealing to me because I felt like even though they were looking for those opportunities to have the membership conversion conversation, they were getting missed a lot, you know? And so the direct to membership took that piece out of it. And like Terry said, then their job becomes like, I honestly still had what I would call like membership conversations with people on their first month, just like, what are you getting out of your practice? Oh, you're in the right place. Like you're still having those types of conversations too, which in theory should keep them on to the next month. So it still requires training, still requires processes, but they both work. That's just my 2 cents.
And that's a great 2 cents. And they work because their teams are trained. That is the key thing here is regardless, no intro offer is going to work. No offer is going to work if the team's not trained. It's just not. I mean, you're just going to have things, people buy and drop and stuff like that. In fact, just looking at some numbers for a client, we just did some quick back of the envelope. No, it was more than back of the envelope. I did an in-depth analysis of their conversions and things like that. And this is why it's so impactful to train your team. And this has nothing to do whether it's direct to membership or traditional, is when we did based upon their model, basic industry benchmarks and the difference between what they could be doing, what the benchmark is and what they are doing, it equated to over $200,000 in 1 year. $200,000 without getting a single other person a single more person in the studio, just doing a better job with the people that are coming through the door. It was over 200 grand. And even, okay, let's just say they got 50% better. That's still $115,000 more a year. That can pay for front desk. That can pay for taking your family on a cool vacation. That could pay for the summit. That could pay for a lot of things by just training your team. So regardless, I just want to say pro tip, regardless of what you're doing, make sure the team is trained. Josh.
I think the most underappreciated component of pricing as a strategy in a business, specifically a service business, more specifically a wellness, boutique fitness, whatever studio situation, is that your pricing is actually the structural like foundation for your sales. But sales is about communication above all else, not about convincing anything. And so the other way to sum that up is pricing is a communication system. And so the two thoughts would be, what do you want your pricing to insinuate to your clients? One, and sort of promote them towards in terms of what do they want, which is transformation. And two, what do you want your pricing to foundationally support in what your team is talking about? And so one of the pro arguments for a direct-to-membership model is the idea that it shifts the focus of your conversation from, hey, buy this thing, now buy this next thing, hey, keep going, buy this thing, to being, hey, join us, cool, you're here, and now how is your practice going? How many classes is this? Can I help you build a schedule here? Why don't I slide you into this slot that's full on this class over here? You know, here's this tip or trick. Here's this video on how to do this thing. What's your goal with your practice? Hey, Bridget, have you met Terry? Blah, blah, blah. Like the whole focus shifts to integration into the community and helping them build a habitual practice. Not that that's not there with the other model. It's just you eliminate, you just get to like not talk about the sales part at all. And in theory, the client who buys the direct to membership and knows that also then realizes this is genuinely happening because you don't need to sell that. There's nothing you're selling them anymore. Versus some people have some level of skepticism, even though that behavior would be the same, being like, but this is like because you want to sell me a thing. And so that's not true if you do it right, but I'm just making the point that it shifts some of that communication focus as well. And sometimes that's just like, in fact, more aligned with the studio you want to actually run.
I have a couple more questions for the group. One thing that's coming up as like, oh, that could be potentially more difficult. All of this I'm loving and I'm getting really excited about it and thinking a lot about it in my head. And I'm thinking one about bonus structure because obviously I get it, like they could get bonuses for upgrading from a drop-in to a to this like new month or whatever, this first month of membership. So that'll be there, but I also feel like that'll just probably necessarily be fewer options. So maybe the answer is just I give them a higher payout for those upgrades. Um, what does it look like to track your team's success? Does that look like just who hasn't, like how much, like the retention after 1, 2, 3 months? Is that how, like, it's a lot easier and straightforward to track, like, oh, my front desk staff converted and our, systems converted like this many people onto membership from the intro offer this month. So that sounds a little bit harder. And then the last question is upgrading from, it feels like a really big jump to ask like a guest pass coming in to be like, hey, you paid $0. Would you like to now pay $69 and be a member at our studio?
I got to jump ahead. I got to jump
Okay,
ahead.
yeah, there
I
you
got to
go.
jump ahead of Josh on this.
Yeah, go.
Okay. So first off, there's lots of ways. One of the things that I've had a lot of clients I've worked on is we do what's called a conversion tracker, where they're actually tracking the conversions from like guest pass, buddy pass, drop in, whatever it is. Okay. In terms of, so let's say, what's your drop in at Honey Yoga?
35.
35. And let's say you go to a direct membership, you're going to charge 60. Right? So that's a difference of $25. Right? It's simple. Hey, Bridget, we see you came in a buddy pass with your buddy Josh. He is so awesome. We just love having Josh here. Here's a start. What most people do is our Honey Yoga membership. And for you today, it's only $25 for your first month of unlimited yoga.
Oh, so even if he paid 0, we're just pretending he paid like a drop in.
Because if you think about it, and this is a conversation we have a lot with people, that you can do that even with a traditional intro offer, the same thing, because if you look at a buddy pass, your buddy pass is cost of acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
It's no different than if you placed a Facebook ad, a Meta ad, a Google ad, whatever it is, you're paying to get that client in. So a buddy pass is a hot lead, it's cost of acquisition. So you're basically applying a single class, which is your drop-in, whatever your drop-in is, to the base of that, knocking that off, and then just doing that. And we're doing the math for them. We used to say, oh, because you're da da da, it's not, it's like, no, you just present it, this is your price today.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
it's amazing how much quicker those conversions start happening. I've had clients have gone from converting 0 buddy passes or very nominal to 30-35% of buddy passes just by doing that. And regardless of whether it's an intro model or a direct to membership model.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry to jump ahead of you, Josh, but I get so excited about that.
Okay. Okay. Oh man, so many things. Too many notes now. Let me just propose this question. It's not specific to honey yoga, but just in general, right? Why are we bonusing a sales team on selling stuff when literally their job description is to sell stuff? I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm saying usually the whole commission bonus thing off of the sales that you make individually, that is a common salesperson situation, but not in the context of a studio. That's just that by selling someone the thing to serve them and help them, it is literally what you're supposed to be doing and what I'm training you to do. So why would I bonus you to just do the thing you're supposed to do? And it can be very difficult because if I give you a bonus by closing Maria, although you might feel like I would be happy to accept that because I did the effort, really, I don't want to incentivize the close. I want to incentivize the customer service to the person and the invitation to habitual practice. And also by extension, there's sometimes a difficulty because, like, if I talk to Terry 3 times in the month, and then Carol does, and then Bridget does, and then they just walk in, Maria happens to by some fluke be working today, and they're like, put their credit card down, hey, sign me up for membership, then Maria is the rep who closed the sale. And like, so unless you want to do a really specific tracking system for that, which is, I think, a total waste of time, it's very difficult. And so I'm not saying you can't. It seems to not actually contextually fit in most studio cases. And it also isn't the motivator studio owners want it to be. I hear all the time from studio owners, well, I pay them every time they sell. Hey, like they get paid, plus I pay Maria $10 for every auto pay she signs up. Because I thought, and they say, because I thought that would get them to try to sell the thing, and they're not doing it. It doesn't, that's not what happens. That's a special person. If you tell me or Terry, you put us at the front desk and you say, Josh, I'll give you $10 for every person you sell, I'll sell every person, and then you'll regret having given me that thing. But that's a salesperson thing. It's a personality type. Not everyone's like that. So that's just the question. So to me, we have a few different bonus structures and strategies that we use. Usually for a front desk team, it's better, in my opinion, to form it as what we call like a pot of gold, where the whole team accesses a bonus structure based off of a larger outcome of sales or retention or whatever. And that's the like share the wealth if we're growing, because it lets you benchmark it against your history. So you can do it only on growth, and you can do it related to things that aren't just one-off sales. And then we're working as a team where it's like, I I get a cut of this based off my percentage of work and effort or whatever. There's some details in there to sort out. But I don't have to have attachment in the moment of like, if I miss the sale, I won't get my bonus. So it changes the feeling in the sales thing. So if you're going to do that, that's, I think, a model. But then how do you track? Here are the quick things that I think should be tracked. Retention is absolutely a must track situation. Sales, yes, but more on the macro sense of things, not on the micro sense of things. And then the net members and monthly churn. Those are, and you maybe add those two later on, but like those are the hyper powerful metrics because it's the inflow outflow in a simple sense of what a front desk team and or teacher team like actively should be participating in. And if they go sideways, the business suffers immediately, but they also are the easiest way for you to give hard facts on alignment with the mission of what you're trying to do, which is probably some version of help more people do more classes to feel more transformation. And we know that that requires you doing more classes over time. Like that's the condition that has to exist. And so if I can't help you get onto membership or you cancel right away off of membership, we're not, something's missing.
I just gotta say this about pot of gold. I am like this with pot of golds because I've been in situations, not necessarily yoga studio when that happened, and I got shafted in that because I still had the best. It was in a restaurant where they pooled their tips. I still had the highest, and it just chapped my ass that I'm hustling for the tips. And I would walk home with a quarter of what I should have,
Yeah.
really. My father said, "So you like capital?" I said, "Yeah, I enjoy capitalism." But one thing you can do in that situation is, and I did this, you can divide that a little bit. You could divide that absolutely based on the number of hours somebody works. So if you have someone, because that's the other thing, if you have someone that works like one desk shift a week, but still a rock star, that's great. But then you have someone's working 4 shifts a week. There needs to be, just throwing this out there, there just needs to be some parameters there so that there's more of the people that are working more have more opportunity there. And that actually can be something to get people to work more hours. It's like, hey, once you're on X shifts a week, then you're eligible or something
Yeah.
like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would just say, Terry, that I totally get what you're saying and I agree. For most studios, that's not the starting point, and for most studios, they don't have that person. Like they're training the whole team and the whole team is raising. So if you're the studio where that does happen, just be aware of like the theoretical situation of it not being fair enough in the payout in the future. Let that be a problem first and then fix it. In the restaurant industry is a good example actually, because I've experienced that too. That's a management problem though. You're lacking other tracking and stuff. One studio, we put a whole system in place. It took a long time to do because we had to figure out how to automate it so it wasn't an administrative burden. But you got paid a portion of the pot of gold based off of not only the percentage of hours that you did, but the relationship between your sale rate per hour versus the team average. And so if you were a top performer, it's like you would work less hours, but you would get a little bit more. So there was 2 factors that factored into the percentage that you would get. I think for 95% of studios, no, like just honestly, if you're just starting out with something like this, unpopular opinion, make the pot of gold, give an exact even amount to everyone on your team for the first 3 months, regardless of hours, shifts, classes, whatever. If you want the whole team to congeal and get everything going, fucking let go of the reins on things, give them the bonus based off of, hey, as a studio, as a mission-based group, as a whatever, we did this. Here you go. Everyone gets $100. That feels good. And then you can adjust it to be more specific. I feel like if you're in the position where you're really trying to get your team all rowing the boat the same direction, actions like that in the short term can be really powerful. And it's just easy to launch on too.
I just want to shout out my client Kai. who this is all making me think about this amazing sequence that she wrote. She was taught the email sequence. We had been talking a lot about retention after the first month of membership. She's not on direct membership, but she was talking about like wanting to do something for the people who had just signed up for membership and felt like they would just been kind of left hanging, which I think happens a lot in studios. It definitely happens in mine to some extent.
For all of you not watching the video, mid-sentence, Terry just ended the ended the session. She's like, I don't agree with this anymore. I'm out. Peace. Just fucking drops down.
All
Oh my
horrible.
goodness. All right. Well, let's pick it right back up.
Yeah, I was
Shouting out Kai.
yeah, shout out to my client Kai, who this is making me this discussion about direct to membership and nurturing those members in their first month. I was saying she is not on direct membership, but a traditional intro offer. But then she correctly and so importantly pointed out, like, okay, well, we do all this stuff to nurture people in their intro month or intro 2 weeks. And then what do we do with them when they just become a member? And then, like, we just say, hey,
Yeah.
and they just check in and go. So she wrote this incredible sequence of emails, and we've been just tweaking them a little bit and like optimizing for openability. But all of this, and she's such an incredible yogi. And she is so dedicated, and she has all these amazing tips for like how to have a great practice. So we have created this great little sequence that is like just from her directly and is just like, I want to share these, 3, 4 things that have changed my life when it comes to Bikram yoga. And I just think something like that, that's so like from the heart and directly from owner and like master yogi to a new member can be so powerful. And we're getting to this point where I'm like, I want to read these emails, and I don't read any of my emails, so I just think that that was so smart of her and got me thinking about stuff. And so I love that idea of getting to focus, even for what moving to direct membership, getting to focus all of our energy more on like that real important stuff that we all came here to do, which is get people into a regular transformative yoga practice. Josh.
Yeah, and think about it from the context to your point with her too, which is that sounds awesome. It's like how long, how many years, how much experience, how many hours of training, teaching, practice have gone into her knowledge base. And so that's super valuable, but hard to tangibly grab sometimes. We forget about it. That like you can offer that to your community. It will speed them up. It took you 7 years to figure something out. And if you're able to distill it down to something I can understand on month 3 and I can use it, like that's really powerful actually. So I think it's smart. And as soon as it's direct membership as the subject matter here, like to your point, as soon as you're on membership, it's like you enter that sequence. I wanted to comment on it though from a really practical sense because that can seem really big. It can seem like something that's hard. And there's also the modern version of these sorts of things. And so I would highly suggest that as an owner or lead teacher or marketer, that's sort of the three people in a business that would be part of this, you start to look at content as well. Content is king, context is God. The context is you're a member here. What's the content that's relevant for you? And then we're looking at content production with consistency as the first thing to solve. Don't worry about building the whole thing. Worry about building the machine that creates consistency, and then you can recycle it into other places. It's a spider web. What I mean is you write an email, turn the email into a blog post, turn the blog post and the email into 1 to 3 short videos or 1 long video that you cut down, that you post. Like the value of doing this, of writing an email a week, is exponential now. It's always been something we would try to do but you can put a system in place, you can cut things up, you can produce content so much faster, so much easier than ever before in history. It's wild. I don't know why you wouldn't do it at this point. And the value of it isn't the content itself. The value of it is the audience you create because of the content. It's the attention that you curate over time. It's the trust and the authority that you build in your members. If I read an email from Bridget once a month that I find interesting while I'm on membership, I don't have data to support this, but I'd be willing to put money on the fact that that person, like if I'm opening the email and engaging in it or watching the video, I'm less likely to cancel if I'm paying attention. I'm engaged in what we're doing. One of the major reasons people churn and quit is because they lose sight of where they are, what the value is, and what they're doing, and they get bored. Boredom is like a killer. They become apathetic. They're like, yeah, it's nice, I feel good, but like kind of don't care. And then their friend's like, let's try this thing. And you're like, okay. And you're gone. And at that point, it's really hard to fight against. Build a series.
Is that a wrap? Mic drop there.
I guess so. Let's
Guess so.
just don't even say anything. Just abruptly turn the meeting off.
Oh God.
It was a good one. All right. Well, that's a wrap on this week's weekly roundup. Tune in every Friday and make sure you subscribe to Studio Cult TV on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you're listening from. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.